handle that. So welcome everybody. I wanted to welcome Lanna Thompson from VEA. She has been so important in my life. If you haven't heard parts of my story, so we're going to share a little bit about that. And she's going to teach us zero inbox, which is or inbox zero. I'm not sure why it's called that, Lanna. Do you know? Inbox zero versus zero inbox.
A lot of people think it's called inbox zero because it means you should have zero emails in your inbox at all times. And that's actually not correct. The initial meaning behind inbox zero is that the brain power, the mental capacity that you're having to devote towards your email at all times is very minimal. Although to accomplish that, it does mean that very often we get our inboxes down, so we have almost no emails in them. But it's more about the mental capacity you have to give to your email rather than the number of emails you actually have.
I love that because I do not need any mental capacity on my email. It's so stressful. And I'm just going to say one more time, if you can hear us, right in the chat, because I know we had a few new people come in, and yeah, just let us know, and anybody new that you're able to hear and everything's well, and then yeah, we'll get, and so yeah, inbox zero or zero inbox. It's always called inbox zero online, and I always call it zero inbox, so whatever.
Inbox zero sounds more awkward, right? Like zero inbox makes sense intuitively.
I don't know why it's like that online, but okay, yes, I love the mental concept of never having emails, because it just feels like such a burden. It feels like cleaning your room. Like, I don't want to do that. And it's like all these little socks you got to pick up, but to find like the good, the good jewelry down there or the great shirt. I was like, oh, what's all this stuff? And I think I love subscribing to newsletters that I don't read. I've got FOMO, fear of missing out. So I'm like, oh.
You're not alone, Daphne.
So I'm like, oh, if I subscribe to this, I'll read it later. And sometimes I do go back, so that's cool. But lately, it's been a lot of unsubscribe because I just don't even want to see it there anymore.
Well, and I think with everything going on with the world right now, this webinar is so relevant because I'm not sure about everybody else, but my inbox has never been more full. So, we had the influx of emails from everybody who wanted to share what they were doing to protect us during COVID. And, I'm like, okay, great. Thanks, Gap. I'm glad you're telling me what you're doing to protect me. But it was so many emails that it started to get really overwhelming. And I think my inbox has really never been more full.
Yeah, I agree. And people working remotely. And I think there are other things, like we should probably do a session on Slack or other tools to get rid of some of these emails and like the conversations. But today it's all about how do you keep that organized. So what should we do next, Lanna?
I will go to the next slide. So you kind of prefaced this already a little bit, Daphne, but what does inbox zero mean? So inbox zero is really about reducing the time you spend on your email. So I think most of us are aware email can be such a huge time suck. And if you're not careful, you can literally spend an entire day just doing your email and nothing else. A lot of people have a lot of stress and anxiety around their email, and we see this every day. So our number one requested task at VEA, we're a virtual executive assistant and bookkeeping company, but the number one requested task is email and calendar management, which tells me that people feeling overwhelmed with their emails is a very, very common thing. And they start to get as inboxes fill and fill and fill, they start to get worried about what emails am I missing? I have to search for a past email, but now I'm searching through 40,000 emails to try and find this one thing that I'm looking for. And mentally, that can be really draining to the point where people are avoiding their emails.
Yeah.
Like they almost swing to the other end of the path, and they're like, I don't even want to open my inbox because I know it's bad and scary in there.
Totally.
So when we started working with you, Daphne, I think you were feeling a little bit of this, right?
Yeah, and I was, and so I was in a unique situation that I've talked about before, that I had the brain injury. But even before that, it was getting like, because I'm the sales girl for my company, and I think from anybody who's in sales, you have to see who's emailing you, get back to them. We have these online forms, so people sometimes send requests through there, and then I wasn't getting, but they were stuck in there for weeks, maybe not weeks, but many days at least. And then I'm like, oh my God, I haven't messaged them. And then you just get into overwhelm. You're like, well, I haven't done it and now it's too late. And what am I going to say? And so even before the injury, I was starting to drop the ball on meetings or just things that I needed to get back to people on and just didn't even know where to start. It was just so full. And the emails would be like, I don't know, 300 a day, or I can't even remember what it was. Like it would just pile up and then I'd be like, oh my God, I don't even know where to start. So
yeah, and it's so common. And we have to remember that a lot of small business owners, they don't just have one email account. So they might have their personal, for example, I have my Lanna Thompson at VeaPro's email, but then I am also the controller of our info at VeaPro's email and our accounting at VeaPro's email. So, and then many people have both personal and work emails. So you can imagine where the mental capacity required to manage all of those inboxes becomes very quickly.
Yes. And then I had, well, I'm the sales girl and the CEO. So everybody's seeing me, right? And so when I first started working with you, I remember you saying, well, do you need to be CC'd on all this stuff? You know, because every client interaction, all my account managers CCing me so that I know, and then I'll like, you know, do I need to be reading this? And so we did some things structurally in our business too, to say, okay, Daphne doesn't need to know. And if she does, you know, then we have a process for it. That was a huge thing taken off my plate.
Absolutely. So we're going to talk about company FYIs a little bit later on in the webinar because, yeah, mass CCing doesn't help anyone. And there's some ways that you can help your company stop doing that. So email is more efficient for everyone. But yeah, so this is about taking control of your priorities and how much time you spend on email every day. So making sure that your email time is really, really intentional. This is called the Pareto principle. It applies to all kinds of things in life, but it also applies to email. And you will find that actually only about 20% of your emails are going to require 80% of your focus. This should give you a little bit of hope because it means that the other 80% of emails you have in your inbox, you actually will be able to deal with very quickly. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. And if you can just get down to that top 20%, then you will find that your email time is much more manageable. A couple of tips. So number one, to keep email time as intentional as possible, you should be turning your email notifications off. There was a study that came out of the University of California, Irvine, which says that when you're distracted, so if you're really focusing on something and then you get distracted, it actually takes you an average of 23 minutes and 15 seconds to return to the same level of productivity you were at before you were distracted. So if your email notifications are dinging at the bottom of your screen while you're trying to work on a big project, if you're looking down at those, you know, every couple of minutes, even though you're only distracted for maybe a second or two, or maybe 2 or 3 minutes, if you decide you're actually going to go and look at that email, it could take you up to 23 minutes to return to the same level of productivity you're at before. That's no good. So turn your email notifications off. You want to set in your calendar, set email time 2 to 3 times a day where I'm turning on my email. This is where I'm going to deal with my email during this time. And the rest of the day, your email's off so that you can focus on other priorities.
I'm just laughing because I'm like, oh, that's why Bernie yells at me. He's my husband. He's my husband and the programmer for our company, and I'm like, oh, I interrupt him like because I have like this great idea in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, stop interrupting me because he's busy trying to concentrate on like the whole picture.
Yeah, exactly. It's hard to refocus, and like the email notifications give your brain a little surge of like dopamine. So it's not your fault that it feels good to click on that notification, but to help you be efficient in your day, turn those off and just have really set and intentional email time.
Yeah, I've heard of that, and I've heard of like text messages and emails. Like you said, give dopamine. It's kind of like an addiction. It's like gambling because you actually, what the study that I read was like, you don't know if it's going to be good news or bad news. So it's like, oh, it's like, a roulette thing or.
Well, and if you're a checklist person and you like get a little surge of happiness when you can cross out a to-do item, responding to and being able to delete emails is going to give you that same surge. And again, it's just really easy to spend a whole day doing nothing but checking your email, which isn't going to drive your business forward, of course.
Exactly.
So I'm going to teach you a couple of ways to do inbox zero. The first one is going to assume you're not lucky enough to work with an EA. So this is going to assume that you're having to do a lot of your inbox processing yourself. These same rules apply if you're working with an EA, but these are the steps you would take yourself as opposed to having an EA do these things for you. So as things come into your inbox and you're getting ready to do your intentional email time, with each email, you're going to want to take one of 4 actions. Action number 1 is delete or archive. And it's important to know the difference between delete and archive, especially if you're using G Suite, because if you put something in delete in G Suite, Gmail will delete it for most plans after 30 days. So it means that email's gone forever. Whereas if you put it in archive, it goes into your all mail folders, and then it's still searchable if you need it for future dates. Delete or archive is an easy decision to make. Is this email relevant to me? If it's not, get rid of it unless you're going to need it at a future date. So this is all your spam, all your junk mail. We're going to talk about unsubscribing a little bit later, but delete is probably one of the easiest decisions to make. The next one is delegate, and this is where a lot of business owners struggle a little bit more, because sometimes it's really easy to give someone a 5 or 10 minute answer rather than delegating the email to the best person to actually answer it. But the risk you take if you don't delegate is then you are now on that email string until the issue is fully resolved, or the thought is fully vetted, and really you're not the best person to be dealing with it. So you want to look at your email and say, am I the best person to handle this, or should I be forwarding it to somebody else? Now, if you have a lot of anxiety about forwarding emails to other people because you're not sure if they're going to be handled or not, number 1, take a look at what accountability processes you have in your company. But it's really easy to delegate things and then file them away in a folder, so later on you can go back through and check in on those things and make sure the person you delegated them to is actually addressing them.
That's an awesome idea. And one of my mentors calls it having the monkey on your back. And he's like,
Yeah.
whenever you have a meeting or like an email interaction, who ends up with the monkey on their back? And make sure it's not you. If you're a manager, or if you're, if you have other things to do, right, then deal with that task. And I think there's a book called The 1 Minute Manager Has the Monkey on His Back, or something like that. And it's a great concept that everybody should learn about delegating.
Absolutely. Well, you're taking some accountability away from your staff if you're not letting them handle those things that they would be best to deal with. And everybody thinks, oh, it's just a 2 or 3 minute thing, I'll just answer it. But 2 or 3 minute tasks can fill up a whole day very quickly.
Yes.
So
add your 23 minutes and 15 seconds or whatever that other stat was to that,
exactly.
Whenever you think about that, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The next one is respond or do. So if you can respond to the email or complete the task in 2 minutes or less, you're going to want to go ahead and do it right away. So an example of a do would be somebody has agreed to a meeting with you, so you need to send the calendar invite. That takes 2 minutes or less. Go ahead and do it, and then delete or archive that email so it's out of your inbox, it's taken care of, and away you go. And the final one is defer or file. And this is for emails that are going to take longer than 2 minutes. And we're going to talk about filing in a minute. But this lets you triage your emails into, what do I need to actually deal with during this 15-minute block of email time, or whatever you've set aside, and what really can wait until my email time this afternoon, or maybe my email time later this week. So it's just a way to triage your emails to make sure you're not missing anything important, you're answering urgent things now, and then everything else is being pushed to later on in the week, just again, so you don't end up by spending 2 or 3 hours of your time in your email. All right, so let's talk about folders. And Daphne, I know you're using a lot of these folders. Travel, reading, and invoices or receipts is really the low-hanging fruit of folders. It's the easiest place to start. So when you're booking travel for yourself, those emails don't need to stay in your inbox. Really easy to just pull them over to a travel folder so they're somewhere easily accessible when you need them, but they're not cluttering up your time and attention now. The big thing with your travel folder is, of course, keep it clean. Or if you're working with an EA, have her keep it clean. You don't need to keep your flight information from your flights 8 years ago. Nobody needs that. But just really quickly pull your travel confirmations over into your travel folder.
I have to say something about that. So before I met
Absolutely.
you, I would go to the airport and then get to, security. I'm like, oh my God, where's that email? And then after I met you, it was like, it's in the travel folder and here it is. And it was like, they're concepts that make so much sense, but like I had no idea that was a thing, right? And here I am looking Air Canada. And then of course it never comes up properly. So it was like, so I love it. And anything, I know that my hotel bookings there, like it's just such an easy way to find everything.
Absolutely, absolutely. And a lot of email programs will auto feed your travel emails into your calendar as well, which is great. But if you want those little details, just pull them into your travel folder and away you go.
And then,
Daphne,
sorry, Nadia's she does bookkeeping, accounting things. And she said some people need to keep their old travel email. So for their record, so you might do like a travel archive, right?
absolutely, yeah. So if you need those receipts for 7 years to stay CRA compliant, then yeah, once you're done with them, put them in a travel archive. So again, you're not looking through 7 years of travel trying to find your current trip. Absolutely, great point, Nadia. Daphne, you touched on reading earlier. So we are all guilty of this. We all have FOMO when it comes to articles, and we all want to know what is the most exciting topics in my industry, what are the thought leaders saying. So we subscribe with the best of intentions to all these white papers and influencers and blogs, and then they fill up our emails, and 10,000 emails later, we haven't read a single one. So Daphne, you remember how many you were subscribed to when we first started working with you?
I don't even know how many.
It was a lot. It was a lot.
Lots. Oh yeah, I love reading. I'm such a nerd. I'm always like, what can I learn? And I called my folder blogs I love.
Yeah, exactly. You can call it whatever you like, but the point is, your brain can only absorb so much and you can only learn so many things. So for a quarter, pick something you're really going to focus on. Maybe this month you really want to learn about SEO, or you want to learn about PPC or whatever. Pick something that you're going to be intentional about and just subscribe to, those white papers and blogs. And then when you feel like you've gathered the information you need, unsubscribe and then subscribe to a new set. It's much better than subscribing to everything, because then it just becomes information overload. And just because you unsubscribe doesn't mean you can't resubscribe at a later point in your life when the info is relevant to you again. It just means right now we're just focusing on the things we really care about. So best practice is whatever you're subscribed to that relates to blogs you love or whatever it is, pull that off into a folder, and then maybe Friday morning is your educational time. Make yourself a delicious coffee. You sit down and you can browse through your reading folder, read the articles that are relevant to you, and then make a decision. Okay, am I done with this article? Am I going to now delete or archive it? Am I pulling it into a different folder for future reference? But again, with your reading folder, you don't want to let it just build to infinity unless the information is going to stay relevant long-term for you. And then the next one is invoices and receipts, fairly self-explanatory. If these are supposed to go to someone, then immediately forward them, because that fulfills our 2-minute rule, and then put them into a folder so that you have them just in case the email doesn't go through or something goes missing. It's an easy reference point for future. And then some of the other folders that you can look at adding into your life. So urgent means something different in everyone's life. So you have to decide for you what is urgent, but our general rule of thumb is urgent are emails I'm really going to deal with in the next 24 business hours. So when you're sorting through your inbox, things that you're putting in urgent are emails I'm going to come back to and solve at some point today, or maybe first thing tomorrow morning. Whereas regular is emails I know I need to respond to, but really it needs to be at some point this week. I don't need to do it right now. Company FYI, so this goes back to what Daphne was saying earlier. So train your people not to CC you on things unless you really, really need to action them. But sometimes they want to let you know, hey, this is what's going on in the company, and there's really nothing you need to do with that information. It's more of a just so you stay on top of different projects. Put those in a company FYI folder, and then very similar to your reading folder, you can just browse that once or twice a week to make sure you're on top of things, but it's not taking up any mental capacity or any space in your inbox to think through things. Client specific, I know Daphne, you use this one a lot. So if there's emails that are related to clients that you want to save for future, and you want to reduce the amount of time you spend searching through your all emails inbox, you can file those away into a client specific folder. So it's a smaller number of emails to search for at a later date.
And I think for us, when we onboard clients, we do like, there's a lot of communication going back and forth. So that's really helpful for us. And then as we move into like a maintenance phase, we don't need to do that as much. So it might be like a project you're working on where it's like, okay, it's going to be super busy with all these emails. You can put them into some kind of folder like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then personal, again, you probably don't need to be responding to personal emails every day. If you're super, super busy at work, the email from your mom, obviously, yes, we want to respond to it, but maybe we don't have to do it today. So lots of people like to have a personal folder. If they're getting personal and business emails to one inbox, then they'll create a personal folder so that, again, they can get to those emails when they have time and they don't have other more urgent business priorities that they have to deal with that day.
Yeah.
Daphne, are you using a personal folder?
Am I using?
Mm-hmm.
Because I actually have my son's emails forwarded to me just so I can keep an eye on him.
Smart mom. Smart mom.
Yeah, and his school stuff too. So his personal, he's got his personal email, his school email. He's like me.
Yeah, good.
So yeah, I just want to make sure that I understand what's going on with school, and especially now it's so crazy, like the whole school situation. So just trying to like keep on top of that. So that's my personal, and of course things that my parents send me or my cousins, things that I should know in the world that they're educating me on goes in personal. And then for me, urgent is the one that's the only thing I check every day. And sometimes, yes, it does pile up and I don't get to stuff, and maybe I need a little strategy where it's like, it's actually not for today, but I do need to get to this. And I also have an ASAP, and that means I want to get to it as soon as possible, but it's not urgent. So, like that grid is like super important, urgent, so this would be like important, but not urgent.
Yeah.
You set that up for me, the ASAP folder, and that one's kind of really big.
Yeah. We'll talk about keeping your folders clean in a minute.
Yes, I know. Yeah. I need another lesson on that.
And email is really, it's a personal thing, you guys. Like, there's no one plan that works for everyone because everyone's brains work differently. So the whole point of it is you want to reduce your email time. You want it to be intentional. You want to not spend your whole day in your emails. So set up your folders as they work best for your brain and how your brain processes things. If urgent doesn't help you, if that language doesn't help you, figure out what language does work for you and do that. There's no exact science behind any of this.
Yeah, you can make your folder names.
Okay, a few other tips. Yeah, you can make them fun. If that makes email time more exciting for you, call them something fun. Whatever helps you approach email without the stress and anxiety that you really don't have to have around it. Mm-hmm. We've talked about unsubscribing already, so I won't beat a dead horse here, but I just encourage everyone to be honest and realistic. Again, admit to yourself if you have FOMO because you've subscribed to 45 different influencers and the chances of you reading all 45 papers every week is slim to none. Again, unsubscribing is not a permanent thing. You can go back and resubscribe, but be honest with yourself about whether this is information you're actually going to read and use in this current season of your life. Automatic filters and scripts. So if you don't have the benefit of working with an EA, or even if you do, automatic filters and scripts work really well for noisy, frequent, or non-urgent items. So, for example, if you're getting a bill from NMAX for your utilities every month and you don't need to see or approve it, set an automatic filter so it forwards to your bookkeeper and you don't have to worry about that email. Or if you're getting a certain type of email from your staff all the time with certain subject lines, you can set it up so that goes right to your company FYI and you don't have to look at it. Same as scripts. If you're typing the same thing over and over again in emails, make yourself a script. Again, a lot of people say, well, what is that going to save me, a minute or two? Yeah, probably. But if you're saving a minute or two on 20 emails a week, that time starts to add up really quickly and can be put to better use. So we could do a whole webinar on filters and scripts and how to set those up at another time. But for now, just look into them. They're fairly easy to set up in both Outlook and Gmail, and can really help increase your productivity. Keep your folders clean. So Daphne, sounds like you're breaking this rule a little bit.
Like, don't let your folders become another source of disorganization. Oh no, my room's messy again.
Exactly. So if your urgent folder has 10,000 emails in it, that's no better than your inbox having 10,000 emails in it. You've just created or traded one source of disorganization for another. So keep your folders clean, or task your EA with keeping your folders clean. So once you've dealt with something, make that same decision you would have made if it was in your inbox. Are you now going to delegate it? You've done what you need to do and you need to delegate it. Are you going to delete or archive it? Or are you going to put it in a folder? Maybe it's some information on a client you want to keep for easy reference later, but take it out of your urgent and put it into a subfolder so that your urgent remains clean, same as your inbox. And then use technology. There are so many amazing platforms out there. There are a number of programs that sit as a skin on top of your Gmail email, for example, and it breaks all your email up into columns, so you can kind of drop and drag emails over, and you can see, okay, here are the emails in my urgent, here are the emails in my ASAP. Some people find that visually more easier to use than they do folders. So use technology as it works for you. If you're getting a lot of receipts and invoices, there's programs like Receipt Bank, which help you organize those in your email. So look at how technology can really help you out here, because there's a lot of programs available at really, really low cost.
And one of my favorites is the email. It's like Boomerang, or I think it's called Boomerang. There's like Yesware. And what you can do when you're managing your own email, not when you have a lovely EA, is you can say, okay, remind me in 2 days, because it's like, I don't have to deal with this right now. And it's like a really quick button that sends it off in 2 days. And the other thing is, I sent an email to someone, hey, remind me in 3 days to follow up with them. So it's really helpful. And I think, yeah, Boomerang was one of like the easiest ones to use. And again, it's like a trial and error thing where you like try a whole bunch of different apps until you find the one that like is super easy to use.
Absolutely. And if you find your emails are really task-based, like if they're not information-based, but really your emails are all about tasks, look at whether a program like Asana or Daphne, you probably know a few others that work really well, that let you convert your emails into tasks really quickly, so that you have a task list and not an inbox with 40,000 emails in it.
Yeah, and we actually just had a webinar with Asana last week. So if you guys look at our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see it there and see some really good tips about that.
Awesome. That's a really good program. I love it.
Yeah.
All right, let's talk about how this changes a little bit using a virtual EA. And Daphne, I know you have some experience to share here. So the idea behind a virtual EA is that they are completing 2 to 3 15-minute checks on your email per day. It may go up or down a little bit depending on the volume of your email and what you're using, but the idea is they are completing, and I'm just going to scroll back up, they're completing this step for you. So you don't have to do any of the sorting or organizing. You're literally just going to your folders and dealing with what you need to deal with right now, and they've done everything else for you. So they're putting all your travel confirmations in your travel folder. They're filing away your blogs and your white papers into your reading folder. They're taking care of your invoices and receipts. They're getting you to a point where you're just really focusing on these 2 folders, your urgent and your regular, or what Daphne calls your ASAP. So if you have, just 15 minutes today to do your email, you're only going to your urgent folder and taking a look at what your EA has filed away as, you know, hey, I need to deal with this today. Daphne, how much time were you spending on email before your EA versus now?
Oh, like hours. Like you could be a whole day, right? And like you said, like with the little notifications, you're like, oh, email rabbit hole, right? So yeah, so just so much time. And I think even with this, like if you think of it for yourself, if you're not going to get an EA, you could just spend 15 minutes a day just sorting stuff, not dealing with anything, and then just sorting it. And the thing was, I didn't have any folders before, so I like there was just no like there's no strategy. I didn't know there was an email strategy. And what's really cool about it is I had an EA for a while and then I didn't have an EA, and I was able to like keep things pretty organized because I learned the strategies from you guys. So that was amazing. But yeah, going from like hours a day, like just, I don't even know, you know, you just fall down the little rabbit hole.
Yeah, exactly. So easy.
Or like start reading, you know, I'm like, oh, the blog one. Oh, I should read this article. Yeah, I mean, just, and then now it might be like sometimes 5 minutes a day, you know, like 15 to 20 on the like bigger side because I'm dealing with something that I have to deal with. So it's super exciting to be able to do my real work, like what I'm really good at is not.
I love it. I love it. And I know, Daphne, one of the big things we do for you and kind of a nice pairing to email is calendar management. So again, calendar management is one of those tasks. It doesn't take a lot of time, but it's amazing how those little chunks of time add up into hours. So, you know, we've all done it where you're trying to schedule a meeting with somebody and you have the 45 emails back and forth until you can find a date and time that works for everyone. This is a great use of a virtual EA and allowing them to take all that back and forth off your plate so that really it's just you see the calendar appointment appear in your calendar and you show up for your meeting. It
Yes,
can reduce a lot of
that's like,
time.
I think the most exciting thing ever. And I remember trying to do calendars myself and I was like, oh, I need like a doodle now. And then I'm like, oh, doodle's a paid service. I'm like, how do I, and then, and then I called Lanna and I was like, Lanna, I need some help. And it was all taken care of. But no, the
Exactly.
thing is like the most exciting thing because, for example, right now with Project Lemons to Lemonade, I'm interviewing business owners like twice a day. There was no way that I could be scheduling them and like offering them, you know, a couple different options and then getting them in. And I know with my EA, she's even putting the Zoom link, like she's taking care of, well, now we have an intake email and she's, you know, at first she was like, did you want me to do that? I'm like, oh, no, I totally got, you know, and I don't know why I said that. So I was like, can you, and now I just introduce her to the new person. Hey, Merritt, can you help me, you know, please, you know, do the song and dance.
Yeah,
Do
it's
the lemonade
perfect.
song and dance.
Well, and people forget too the amount of time and energy that often goes into rescheduling. So, you know, if something comes up in your week that you weren't expecting and you need to reschedule, you know, the back half of your entire week, that could be pretty extensive to reschedule. Or, you know, heaven forbid you get sick or one of your children gets sick and you
Or
can't
you
make
get
a meeting
stranded
for
in
the
San
day.
Francisco for a day.
Or you get stranded in San Francisco for a day because Air Canada cancels your flight. Again, those are stressful situations in and of themselves, compounded even more if you have to be trying to call people and contact people and get your calendar redone. So it's a great use of your EA's time and one we highly encourage. And then again, you're looking at two folders. You're looking at your urgent and your regular or your ASAP. The rest of it you're getting to during the week when you have time or on the weekend when you're going to do some reading. So it really does cut down your time and makes it very, very intentional when it comes to email. Here's some contact information. So if anybody has any questions about email management or would like me to share some software that we really like or some other tips that we use, I'm happy to do so. At this point, I guess we'll see if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions about sorting out your email or any, like you think you have like maybe a unique situation that we haven't talked about right now? Feel free to raise your hand or tell us in the chat and we can open up the mic for you. And otherwise, I can keep talking about my experience with email. Yeah, so I think, yeah. So I think what I took away from today is I have my urgent folder, but I'm actually not using it as an urgent folder because it should be just what I need to do today. So I need to have like another sub urgent folder. And you're right. I'm keeping some of the things where it's like, I'm like, oh, I really need to get back to this person, but I don't have the information ready yet. So I'm kind of using it as just a holder for VIP people that I need to get back to. But that's not what it's supposed to be.
No, yeah, you don't want to leave things in your urgent folder. You want to deal with them and then either delegate them or delete or archive them or file them into a client folder. But again, just the chances of something getting missed really increases a lot. If you've got 5,000 emails in your urgent, it's hard to, determine at that point what is actually urgent anymore because there's just so many emails in there, right?
Yeah. Nadia has a question. She says she has 17,000 emails and only 450 unread. So do you recommend that she archive everything? Archive the emails that I no longer need to do anything with?
Yeah, so Nadia, you're not the worst. I think the biggest email cleanup we ever did was over 60,000 emails, and I think like 25,000 of them are unread. So have hope. You're not that bad. But yeah, when we first start working, there has to be a starting point, right? So when we first start working with a client, it makes no sense for them to pay their EA to go through 15 years of emails and kind of file them into folders. So pick a starting point that you're comfortable with. Usually it's maybe anything that's more than 2 months old, and just dump all of that into a past email archive so that you can just deal with the most recent 2 months of emails just to make sure you're not missing anything. And then it's a lot easier to start the process once your inbox is clean. If your inbox still has 17,000 emails in it, it's hard to start. Get it mostly clean. And then as long as you're doing this on a daily basis, and again, these are really quick, 2 to 3 15-minute checks a day, you'll find it's much easier to maintain after that.
Is there a way to archive all at once? Is there like some kind of a thing you can do on, let's say, Gmail?
Gmail let you select all within a certain date range, for example, and then you can pull it into an archive folder. Outlook works a little bit differently, but even if you're having to go page by page and then select all and pull, it's really quick to get that part of it done. I should say though, it's funny because I would say about 10% of the clients that we work with, this process does not work for them at all. So there are some people who have 40,000 emails in their inbox and they are functioning just fine. They don't have any stress or anxiety towards their email. They're not missing emails. They're not spending hours searching for things. They're functioning fine. So if that's you, it doesn't mean that you have to do this or you're doing email quote unquote wrong. It just might be that that's how your brain works and that's okay. I would say, like I said, it's about 10% of our clients who choose to just leave their email alone and they're good to go. So Nadia, maybe you're one of those people.
I'm definitely not.
I'm not either. If I had an inbox like that, my stress level would be through the roof. I'd be so anxious, and I know I would miss things. And in a customer service type business, you just can't be missing emails, or exactly. It's lost sales, right?
That's the big thing. Yeah. And Nadia's asking if Google search works from archive, and yes, it does. So anything that's in archive, you can search at any time, and Google has and a lot of the mail programs have amazing search functionality, and you just press like the advanced search to find what you're looking for. So I love that part. And we were actually just talking today about putting folders in my son's email now that he's all virtual too, right? So with his school email, because he was like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do today, or like, we were actually searching through all his stuff, because every time he gets like a notification from the online learning that they're using, every single time somebody sends a comment, there's like a new email. So I'm gonna go organize his folders too.
I love it. Setting him up for success. That's amazing.
Yes. And you can use the folders too, but for other things like sending yourself emails, reminding yourself, I'm sure there's other ways to use the folders once you get into it.
Yeah, absolutely there is.
So I think that's it. So I'm sure everybody enjoyed it as much as I did. Had a lot of fun having you here, Lanna. Next week we have a motivational speaker, Mandy Ballock's going to join us. You know Mandy.
I know Mandy, she's amazing.
Amazing. So I'm super excited to have her. And then the week after that, so we do this every Wednesday, 11:45 to 12:30, 12:45. The weekend, or sorry, the Wednesday after that is Megan Flatt. She's a planner. She actually built her own planning agenda that she sells, and it's all about how to organize your day, like, you know, your quarter, your month, your week, your day, kind of minute by minute to be super productive. So that's going to be awesome. So those are our next couple events coming up, and we just keep posting more as
Daphne, what is Mandy speaking on?
it's about like kind of like mental health stuff, so like how to stay positive, and you know what you can do to be more relaxed, creating community, those kind of things.
So relevant right now. That's
yeah,
amazing. Good for you.
and her video is coming out tomorrow on LinkedIn if you guys want to see the interview. That's going to be awesome. We had such a great conversation. It's going to be really fun. Everybody has, I mean, we have such a great conversation with everybody. So I hope you guys are enjoying Project Lemons to Lemonade, and it's all about creating hope and sharing entrepreneurial stories and tips for everyone so that we can all grow and get out of this like super positively. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
Thanks, Lanna.